are you?
Good. So I want to talk about personal acceptance and personal responsibility.
Yes.
Which we think people hate.
Having personal responsibility.
Yeah.
I believe that's true.
It's easier to just blame other people.
It's so much easier. Oh my god.
So in my job, I'm blamed a lot for other stuff. And, certain things I can't control and certain things I can control. So I got some strange call last week. So one of my lovely clients, which I do love him.
Is this like a existing?
Long time,
yeah.
long lasting. Very nice. I think he has a text message pending on here.
Love that on your phone.
Yeah, on a Sunday. So he has tenants, and one of his tenants has like a liability policy with me. Mm-hmm. So the tenant paid him the rent. The rent check bounced.
Oh, wow.
So he immediately says, it's Colleen. It's Colleen's fault.
How?
I'm not even there. I'm like, what in the hell? I was like, okay, I'm not there and he doesn't have any policies. I'm like, oh, he does have one, but the payment isn't actually due until this date. And it was like 2 weeks away. And I'm like, and I don't think he has a payment due because I think he's at the end of it.
Yeah.
So his rent payment was $700. And then the payment, if there was a payment that went through, was like $117. Mm-hmm. So 700 and 117. It doesn't add up.
It does not add up.
But it's Colleen's fault. It's just easy.
He just like blamed his tenant
and
for
it's not the only one.
Him, and it was your fault.
Well, he was like, he's policy, and I was like, he doesn't have a policy. I mean, but why would he tell you?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's because Colleen's payment. Unless it said Colleen Pacheco, Secured Insurance, it's not
like it's
mine.
Not, no.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And then I have another client, like anytime she sees a charge on her account that she doesn't know what it is, she just assumes it's me.
It's just like,
and I was like, well, what does it say? That's not me. You don't have any payments with me.
I would say, you really should call the bank first.
Yeah, that's what I would say. You should probably call that number that's on there by the charge.
Yeah, that too.
If it clearly says my phone number or something with one of your insurance companies.
Yeah.
But
like, how could it possibly just be my fault every single time?
It's just easier.
I think the problem is you're too nice.
But,
But I love, and it's so sweet. But people are just mean.
They're just mean. I was like, okay, blame her. She's not even here at the moment.
Yeah.
Not even in the same
city.
city.
I'm not your scapegoat. Like, I'm your insurance agent. There's a big difference.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot really save your life.
No.
I mean, I know CPR, but that's about all.
But if I'm not, like, in the same vicinity as you, like, guess what? You're on your own.
Yeah. So that was just some quirks that happened. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
What is the next thing? Oh, I don't even say that. Oh my gosh. I can't even think about that. Jesus.
Wow. And then I had a rep came into the office, and he's a vendor that I deal with. Let's just say that. And so he comes in to do their hello visit. They do like every quarter, and he says like, hello, and how you doing? How's this? And it was like negative from the first aspect of it. Like, I don't know if he was just having a bad day, but he just comes in and it's like, oh, you've done X amount of premium, let's say, with us, and this, and how come you're not using this program, and how come you're not using this, and how come you're not using that? And I tried to, defend myself and say, well, I use this program for my payments, and I use this program because it balances everything with my bank account.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you do this? You could do that. And I'm like, oh my God.
Like, bro.
I just closed my doors.
Yeah. Like, or just like block his number.
And I was like, you're at my office.
Like, I think I'm your client. You're not mine. Like, you're the one that's supposed to be nice to me.
Yeah. And
like,
I said, well, there's choices.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say his name. There's choices. And it's just when he left, it's like the other people in the office were me. That was really uncomfortable. It was just like, that was weird. And like, does he have to come here again? And then he kind of made like a racist comment at the end. And because I was like, oh, this world's crazy. He's like, it's not going to get any better. You see what's going on. I'm like, oh, I see it every day, and he was like, he's like, well, I guess you could just move to, Mexico. I was like, hey, we got somebody from Mexico here working here.
Like,
and it was just so outlandish, so weird. Yeah. I just left it at that. I was like,
this person sounds like a freak.
Does this need to be a supervisor call?
Yeah,
like it's just inappropriate. But I'm like, no, it's him.
It's him. Yeah.
You know, he's just going to run into the wrong person.
And like he's actually just a freak. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's time to call someone else. I think it is. Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
That's too much. I like no one has time for that too. And
Right.
it's funny because like that was a professional visit like that he was supposed to be making.
It was a
and
professional
it was
visit,
not.
and
He was
you know,
the lack of professionalism.
yeah, and they
was
just brought up some
ridiculous.
other stuff about like past employer, which did sue me. It's all settled now. There's
Yeah.
nothing that it's a public record. But why are you bringing that up?
Like seriously, why are you bringing that
It's
up?
unprofessional, and it's none of your business.
It's not even the slightest bit of his business.
right,
No.
and it's weird.
It just sounds like he was fishing.
Fishing for something,
Yeah,
and yeah, I don't like that. So
No, that's
maybe he
not-
won't be coming by there again.
That's not better business practice.
No,
No.
definitely not. So we're gonna get into it here. Okay. So thank you, Ruby, for joining me on this Saturday. It's so hot, and I'm so glad that you're back to feeling normal again, so we can chat, because I have so much that I want to talk to you about today. So we're probably gonna have to have a follow-up conversation too. So I want to know, how did you get started in real estate?
So that's such a weird. I did not get into it like a normal person, I guess. I had lost my mom to dementia 3 years, May 3rd. And then with COVID and everything happening, I stepped away from the medical field because I didn't want to risk like working on someone and then possibly wiping out an entire memory wing unit of people. So during COVID and after she passed, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not really sure what direction it has anymore. And then there was this Christian entrepreneurial event that I went to. And it was funny because I'm like, something Tim Tebow said is what got me started on this. He was their guest speaker, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to mess up the quote because it was so profound. He said, I believe one of the greatest tragedies is to be successful in everything that doesn't matter. And that hit me so hard because success, we have this idea that success is like big house, 2.2 cars, whatever it is, boat, lake house, X amount of zeros or commas in your paycheck. And, it's that American dream kind of thing that we strive for. But if you're not doing things if you're not doing things that help other people, if you're not helping your community back, what are you really leaving behind? And then so because of that, I wind up meeting a group called Pip's Path to Property, which is this amazing like faith-based group that helps you, a lay person like myself, with all their decades of experience in real estate investing. I was like, I did not know that, you could learn to do this and have win-win situations where you're helping people and helping your own family at the same time. And once we started helping families, it was one of the greatest joys I've had. And then I've just been doing it ever since. And I'm like, I want to do it for the rest of my life because it just feels really good to be able to know that I can do this, support my family, and then be helping other people too at the same time. And you're leaving something behind for people where their families will have a house where they don't have to worry about what's going to happen to me when I die, or my kids get out of college and something happens to me, to be able to give people security. Because I know right now everything is so polarized where, people are like, housing is not a right, it's a privilege. And I don't think that's true. I think that everybody deserves to be able to sleep in a comfortable bed with a roof over their head and feel safe. And I think that's missing in our community right now.
Yeah, I mean, the three basic needs are food, shelter, and clothing. I mean, and everybody should deserve to have it. And we live in a country which has so much money and so much things, and it seems like outlandish that people can't just get the basics. Like you said, it's not a privilege to have a home or somewhere safe to live. So this brings me to the next question. So how has your start evolved? I know it's probably started from you not knowing that much, and now it's evolved to you knowing like so much and being so knowledgeable about what you're doing.
Well, I really have like God number one to thank for like helping me in the direction, because I went from the medical field to this. And like I said, it was completely different. We took that leap of faith. It was scary, but you do it anyway and you feel that calling. And again, Pip's Path to Property, the mentorship that I received, I like if I ever have questions, I can still go back to them and learn. So it started out with just helping one family at a time. I specialized in lease options. I still do for families that can't quite qualify for mortgage. We bridge that gap between them and the mortgage company for them to be able to save up if it's a down payment or credit issues, or they need like, 2 years of employment because they switched jobs or they were out on medical and they have to do 2 years start all over again. We want to be able to help them and empower them to be able to have that pride of home ownership. So started out with just one family. It was a family I knew that I didn't even know weren't I didn't even know they were renters. I thought they owned their house, they'd been there for 8 years, and then they're like, hey, the landlord is like 90, they would like to sell, and we don't know where we're gonna live in 2 months. And I'm
Oh,
like, I had no idea, they've got 2 kids, and then so to be able to help them has been fantastic. So we've helped over 12 families now, 3 different states, and it is just really rewarding to see to know that their kids are in the school zone they need them to be in and want them in. A lot of them are near children's parks and like really great areas for families. And I go to bed knowing that their kids have stability now in these families where they're like, we don't know where we're going to live. They may have to change schools, and that's so detrimental to children. We don't have children, but I know what it's like to not have a stable home, and that affects them across the board. So we've started with families, single families at a time, and now it's branched out to, well, if I can create this win-win scenario with a single family, why can't we take that strategy, get a little more creative with it, and work with? So we've branched off now to nonprofit groups that have a huge housing crisis going on right now, like transitional housing, sober living, things like that, where they have a group of people, they're underserved community of residents, and they've been clean, they've served their time, they've done all the steps they're supposed to do, but it's not like they can just hand an application in to an apartment and get an apartment like a regular family would be able to, because either they've had a criminal record or they have like really crap credit, because where have they been for that time frame? And so then what would happen is if they can't reunify with the family, they'd recycle back through, relapse, or god forbid something worse, and then the cycle continues. So to be able to merge and partner with nonprofits that are like, we have these residents, we don't know what to do, we get to go in and help create for them a tailor-made program of what their next steps for housing could look like for their residents, and that's been fantastic. I love it.
especially now because like the biggest challenge is affordability because the housing market is so expensive and the rents is so expensive. So when you do these, you're helping them be able to find something that's affordable, right? Isn't that the most challenging part is finding them something affordable in addition to being able to live somewhere if they have criminal history, past drug use, or no credit, but they have to be able to be in something that they can afford and not only be able to afford like the rent. They have to be able to buy food and support their kids and
Right.
such.
They still have to live.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
right now, that's an epidemic right now with just, you know, medium income families right now are getting priced out of being able to, with taxes and insurance rising, and they're like, my rent, just or my mortgage went up $500 a month now, and that's like across the board going on right now. So just people that don't even have a criminal background history, but just regular middle class families are just like, we are getting priced out of being able to live. Where now I have to choose between groceries or my mortgage payment or my rent, and it's just it's not going in a good direction right now. So we're working on creating solutions to help with that. So that's why I love partnering with the nonprofits too, because depending what their needs are, everything's different. It's not like I have, oh, this strategy works for everything. I really get to work with and get to know the nonprofit, what their needs are, what their community looks like, their demographic area, and be able to cater a specifically designed program for them to help with their next steps program that works for them. And my favorite part of it is when we can get really creative with it, it's a win-win scenario, because when we craft it for them, our goal is for the nonprofit to also be able to get cash flow back as well. So not only they're housing their residents, they're also getting money coming back into their program to continue housing and helping more people.
Wow, and it's true. The pricing, like everybody, even working households with two incomes, challenged to pay their bills. I mean, I have a kid in college and, it's hard for them. Like he said a couple weeks ago, the biggest challenge for him is money because he doesn't have any. He's in school and everything's expensive. So, we're funding his. Luckily, I've put away money, but like I said, if I didn't put away money and I didn't work for myself, I wouldn't be able to afford to do this. I would be charging up credit cards. He would be taking loans, and it would be worse of a struggle than it is now. Like you said, my mortgage payment went up $300 to $400, and I didn't even realize it. So it's not immune. It's everybody in all classes. I just think it's harder for the lower classes or people without, extra resources. And that's where you come in to bring them those resources that they need because, there's a lot of need and there's not a lot of knowledge, at least like in my part. I didn't know about nonprofits until here recently. And I mean, I heard of them, but I didn't know how people would get access to them. So how would somebody get access to a nonprofit?
So it's a hard group to break into because a lot of them have been taken advantage of in the past. And so it's a very close, tight knit community, which is good because they need that protection because there are people out there that will take advantage of nonprofits. And I think there's a misnomer out there where people are like, oh, if I help or work with a nonprofit, then I have to become a nonprofit or there's nothing in it for me besides the feeling good of being able to help. And that's where I think investors and other people need to realize that you can still be a business. Like we are a business. We are not a nonprofit. We are a for-profit business that works with the nonprofit, but we still make money. And then we're able to create that deal where then they are also able to get revenue coming back into them. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, if I work with a nonprofit, there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it for me, or it's not sustainable. But that's when you have to get creative with the strategies that work for everyone. So we are creating that win-win scenario. I have to call it a win-win-win, like a triple win, because the nonprofit's getting help, their community of residents they need are getting help, and then if we have investors that come in and help, they're also getting cash flow. So everybody is winning in this scenario. And then a lot of people just shy away from nonprofits because they think, oh, they just need me to sign a check over, and they do so much more than that.
Right. Because I've heard in the past people think like only a portion of what you give to a nonprofit goes to the actual services. But I think people fail to realize that a nonprofit is a business. So they have money allotted for the services that they're providing, whatever that may be, but they still have people that work for them that have to be paid to operate that business. So I think that's what the misconception is. And then people think you don't always have to get something in return because it's like you said, it's bigger. You have to help people to be able to help yourself in that. And how do you feel about like this underserved population that's kind of left out that a lot of people don't ever think about that? Like if somebody was in prison, regardless of what they did, they served their time, they got out. Well, where do they go? And they don't, like you said, they may have been in there for a while. Their family may have left them and they don't have the means to figure out something. So when they can find an organization that's nonprofit and you that can help them go into a transitional house and find a plan, that will make them a lot more successful than going just on the street where they're
They
able
go
to.
right back in.
And
Right, they'll go right back in
because
the
they
circle.
don't know anything else and they're scared and they're hungry, they're gotta get money because it's expensive to live out here and they're gonna go back. How have you been able to help people and change their lives, even in just a short period of time? Somebody that maybe told you that, you've helped them so they feel like they can be successful this time.
There's two nonprofits locally in Sanford that I'm really close with that I love, and there's such a negative connotation to when it comes to either sober living residences or transitional housing, where people are like, not in my neighborhood. We don't want to have that kind of riffraff in there. And I want to say, as a person whose backyard neighbor was an Airbnb where they had teenagers jumping off the roof into their pool, I would much rather have a transitional or sober living house in my neighborhood 10 times over than some of the uncontrolled Airbnbs where there's like drunk, loud crazy partying all times of night, 15 cars of them all crammed in there. And the transitional housing are some of the cleanest, best kept yards. They're nicest neighbors. If you like can't lift something, they will jump right out and help you, because these are people that are trying to give back. They're trying to, get their lives back together, and they don't want to do anything to jeopardize them being able to stay there. So you're going to have a beautiful, clean, and it'll be like the best house in the neighborhood on there, kept clean, really quiet, because you're not going to have a drunken, loud partying or anything like that. And then two of my favorite nonprofits right now that I'm working closely with, they are in Sanford. One is the Angels of Mercy Ministry, and they are
Oh,
a women's transitional housing in Sanford. And they have an amazing thrift store too, where they help employ women until they're able to find other jobs. So if you have any donations, they're fantastic, right off Park Avenue. Angel Second Chance. And then one we just worked with, we were so proud of this one. We had just done the ribbon cutting on it with them. They had needed next step housing, and they are the Recovery House in Central Florida. And they have over 70 men that have come out of prison or rehab or coming from a homeless situation where they don't know what to do. So they go there. It's another faith based group. And the beauty of it is they get, AA, NA, mental health counseling, jobs. Both of these groups do everything they can to empower and keep those residents healthy. They have programs, they get them to jobs, they get them to job workforce, like how to write a resume, how to, if they don't have any work skills, they get trained for it. They help them get back into school, they help them get back their licenses. And a lot of people think like, oh, these are people that are like habitual drug users that are just off the street. And I want to say most people are one oops away from having their life turn into a disaster. We do not even realize. Some people
right.
are one house payment away from being homeless. And
Mhm.
then there are a lot of people who are like one oops from having their life just taken from them of what they know and could end up in prison. And some of these people are like car mechanics, electricians, nurses, doctors, so people that had families, jobs, very successful and stable. You would never know they had an addiction problem until one thing takes them out, where it's a car crash or what have you in there, and their whole life, their license, everything is taken away. So they've done their time, they're going through the program like they're supposed to, they've earned that chance to be back into society, but then that negative connotation happens where they can't get back in. And it's just really unfair where they're like, I can't get an apartment like a normal person would, or you can't. If people have no idea, they know the job market is hard to get into. Imagine having a felony on your record of what that hurts you now trying to get a job. Like you've lost the license that you've had, and then now you've got to try to find a place that's felon friendly to be able to hire you. And so both of these amazing organizations help with all of that. And for instance, Recovery House in Central Florida, they had a housing need where like we've got some great graduates that have been clean and sober for over a year. I think one gentleman's been clean and sober for over 6 years. Unfortunately, there was not a family reunification because that's their goal. You want the reunification back with the family. But
Right.
sometimes that does not always happen in these situations. And then so where do they go from there? And none of these places want to then put them back on the street. We cycle back through, relapse. So their goal is we're never going to put you on the street. We'll, keep you here until we can find something else. The problem is when you keep them there, newer residents can't come in.
Right.
So, and then these people have been doing great, 1 year or more, and they don't want to have to share rooms like 3 or 4 people. They want to be able to like have their autonomy again. So for one specific group, we created kind of their next steps program where they have the autonomy of their own bedroom, but they still have that community in the household. They're very close back to the original base of the nonprofit group. So they're checked on a lot. They're able, to get rides to work, things like that, be able to make all the meetings they need to. So they still get that community. They're just not like bumped out. Good luck to you. Bye. Because a lot of people don't realize that relapse is unfortunately part of the journey for recovery for many people. So they need that safe place to be. They need that community, not just be like, and you're on your own. Goodbye. Good luck kind of
Right.
thing.
Because I always hear when people go to the rehab, I'm like, well, I always think that's not going to cure them. Like, there's more. And then they come home and then they go to the same situation. And it's like, how are they're going to have those stressors, the same people. So that's really great that they're able to go and like wind down, learn new skills, and learn how to manage their stresses in a different way. Because I think the mental health crisis right now is like obscene. I have a friend, her son, who's 12, is suffering, with major, issues, and he's 12 years old. And it's like this stuff, I'm sure this happened, but when we were younger, you never heard of somebody having to be on medication, going to the hospital for, a mental health issue.
Yeah,
It's
you don't
just,
get that till college, you know? Then you get all the
you don't
stress
get
when you
that
need
till
to
you
be on
get
that
into
stuff.
your
Right.
20s, and the stress
Yeah.
hits, and now it's like hitting the kids earlier and earlier. And I think it's related to, COVID, probably being isolated at home, and then social media, I think, which is great. It's good and it's bad at the same time because it looks so fake. Like it looks like everything's all butterflies and roses.
It's the highlight reel, and then the cyberbullying that happens is just
Oh
obscene.
God, it's
Oh,
unbelievable. And then, yeah, so I can't imagine what one of your clients may feel like, feeling alone out here, not being able to find a job or find something to support themselves. How can like the general public, like me and other people, help support you and your clients that come to these homes?
sure. So just knowing the areas that you live in to find out what organizations are there. Like there are probably nonprofits you may drive by every day and you don't even know they exist or don't even know what they do.
Right.
So if it's one of those you're like really passionate about it, you're like, oh, I have somebody that needs help in such and such area, feel free to contact me. And if I can't directly help you, I'm going to connect you to the local group that can help. There are so many great organizations out there, and then they need the help and support and just in the spotlight so people know they exist, because of always donations are always welcome, but just the fact that other people talk about them and know they exist
Right.
helps so much, because they're not really, some of them are really huge and are really good, like they're like a national name brand so people know, like Salvation Army, how Habitat for Humanity. But there are
Correct.
other local ones that are just on their own, that aren't nationwide, that are doing such great work in the community, but they're not huge advertisers where they have like their name and face on a billboard. So they
Right.
do exist. So just getting to know who's in your community so you have that network to be able to build. Like I said, and if you're wanting to help people, or a family, or someone that needs the help, contact me. I will find you the local person or place that they can contact on there. And these groups, they do so much behind the scenes to help the communities. And they just need the more recognition and spotlight. So the more they get, the more they can help.
It's true. I feel like the local ones were the ones that I want to help. I'm sure, all the large name ones are great, but they have a lot more funding and a lot more money and a lot more, name out there. But the small ones, there's probably some, like you said, sober living houses. Since I do insurance, I run into issues with, the insurance carriers asking a bunch of questions about sober living homes. But these have been around for years and I've insured them for years. So it's, and I always have to explain it to them. It's after they leave the rehab or the treatment centers, they go somewhere where they can maintain their sobriety in a group setting. It doesn't, maybe they have meetings and stuff there and they hang out and they, just get the support, but it's not a place where they're getting medical treatments. Like medications in most instances aren't provided to them. So it's always like, just explaining it to people in that sense. And like you said, there's probably tons of them around here that we don't know, because I know it's a big, company. Like people buy them, property owners buy the houses, they convert them to be sober livings, and then they rent out those individual rooms. So I know, but I think it's a great thing because there's so many people with drug problems and, legal issues in this state. And I'm sure the whole country, they just don't know where to turn.
Right. And
So,
then these people are not just sitting, in their room or sitting on a couch, like watching Netflix and not, doing anything. They are
right,
out there working 40 plus hours a week. They have jobs. They're back into the workforce. No one's just sitting around on their butt all day eating bonbons or whatever it is. They're
right.
working. And so I mean, these are the people that have, like, to me, they've paid their dues. They're back in society. They just need a helping hand, not a hand out, but they just need a place to be able to be in a safe environment, then continue to either family reunify if that's a safe, like you said, sometimes going back to that same trigger, if it's not resolved, they'll go right back and relapse, or just have a safe place to be to continue to get healthier. Because recovery is there is no cure for recovery. It is a lifelong process, and people need to
Right.
realize that you know I can't imagine what it is like to have a chemical or um, addiction on there, because every day, every hour for some of them is a fight and a constant battle. And you could be clean and sober, for 5 years, but it's still a daily process they have to go through to make sure they make that choice to stay clean. And I mean, that is a lot of willpower. And it is, and for us, we believe in the higher power. God's really, part of that recovery, because we can't do it by ourselves. So,
Right.
but the strength they have to keep going is just amazing, because I'm not definitely not strong enough. I see some of them, and to me, they're like superheroes because they've gone through so much and they're able to turn it around. For
Right.
instance, the Angels of Mercy in Sanford. It's been around, I think, almost 5 years now, and they help
Yeah.
transitional housing for women. The way it got started, and her story is on the website, so it's not like I'm divulging any kind of private information. Ara Lynn is the one that she created that group. She was a nurse, and when she'll tell you her testimony, she had a pretty severe drunk driving accident that
Oh,
landed her in prison, and she was a nurse, lost her license, and then through that, she was able to develop a prison ministry because she was in it for so long. And then so she knows exactly, like, they go to the prison all the time. Sometimes I'll call her, she's like, I'll talk to you later, I'm in prison today. And we joke about it because it just sounds really funny, but she's like, in prison, but she's doing the ministry. She's in there, in the trenches with them, helping them. Like, yes, you're in prison, but then what? You got to come out. Where are you going to go? You're not going to go back to the same place you were at that got you here. We
right.
need to get you the thing. And that's why it's so important in there. The Recovery House of Central Florida, same thing. They want to make sure these guys don't go back into that cycle, that they have hope, they have jobs, they have a safe place to be able to go out and they continue being healthy. And I'm like, you have no, it's just one of those, there aren't like little icons of people that tell you this person is suffering from this and this person's had this kind of life and this person,
Right.
you have no idea. Like, it's somebody's family member they may not even know has having an issue, and then they don't know
Anybody.
where to turn.
It could be anybody. Like you said, we're all one oops away. Like
Yep.
the nurse who has that, organization in Sanford, she was a nurse. She was a registered nurse. She was saving people's lives. And she went out and had too much to drink one night. But that could happen to anybody. I mean, it happens every day. And so I feel like, people don't see that. They think, oh, that doesn't happen to me. Well, it could. It could happen to anybody. And anybody, like you said, you could get hooked on opioids because you get a prescription for a back injury or a
Yep.
surgery. I think, isn't it like the stats for that to get hooked on that? It only takes like a week or
Oh, yeah.
something.
It's
It doesn't,
insane. Yep.
it
And
doesn't
it's
take,
people don't, they're like, oh, well, I'm not an addict. This is a medication I'm getting from a doctor, so I
okay,
can't be an addict on it. But
right.
that's how it gets you, because you don't realize that, you are now hooked and dependent upon it. Or like, their back injury was like a year ago. You shouldn't still be on these kind of medications. It should have resolved, but you don't know that until you
Right.
try to wean off, where you're like, oh, the doctor's still giving it to me, so it must be okay.
It's okay. And the doctor prescribed it and now your body's dependent on it. It's not just like, you need it for your pain. You chemically, your body needs it. And I think that's the sad part that these
Yes.
people, they don't want to be in that position, most of them,
No, and a lot of people think of addiction as, oh, it's a choice. They could just get clean anytime. It is a mental health disease, the same as if someone was going through depression or anxiety or
Right,
ADHD. You don't punish a person for having ADHD or OCD or things like that. Or like, oh, you don't look at them as a terrible person because they have depression or anxiety. It's a chemical imbalance going on.
right.
And it's the same thing with addiction, but for some reason we have this stigma about it, where it's their choice and their fault and they can completely stop it if they wanted to, like that. And that is so incorrect.
If it was that
Or
easy, if it was that easy, we wouldn't have like an epidemic like we have now, with the opioids and, the high volume of fentanyl and everything
oh
that's
yeah, no one wakes up and goes, I want to be an addict today.
Yes, exactly. Who says that? Who wants to shoot themselves with, chemicals? Nobody wants to do that. So I think it's great that you spread your message and that you're helping people. And one thing you said at the beginning, two things, we have a lot in common. So my mother passed away too, just as your mom did. So we have that in common, same horrible disease. And then your mission in life is about how, like, helping other people. And that's what mine is. I just want to educate people, help people, and be real and be genuine. So I feel like that with you is what's so like appealing. Plus your little cat ears,
Ah,
because I'm
well,
a
thank you.
that's like the
Me too.
best part. And so it's so like uplifting because there's not people with real estate, I talk to them all day. And but about this transitional housing and how you've implemented it into your business and to be able to be so passionate about it, I think it's so inspiring. And I'd like to
Thank you.
be able to share like your links and everything on my website to help educate other people. And then I don't know if they ever do like tours or whatever of them. I'd like to go and be involved and see it in somehow. Obviously, I couldn't film it, but I just want to see it and see how I could help them.
Absolutely, I would love that. I would definitely set you up for that. You will love them. Like I said, the ones I work with right now, we've really been blessed right now because you help one, and then they all talk to each other. They're very close knit community. So when one's
Mhm.
like, "This is real. We got this done. It exists, and we have it's successful." I We're lined up now to help 4 other nonprofits locally in the area, and then I also have one in New Hampshire that's reached out.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and I'll work anywhere there is a need to work with on there because, like I said, there's such a demand right now, and there's so many other people that want to be able to help and give back to the community. So it's one of those, you know, there are so many investors that are like, I want a good return, but sometimes having that really huge return and sleeping well at night are two different things on there. But like you can have both, if it's creative enough on there that you're still making a difference in there. And
Exactly.
I
Like
think
it's
that's what we're
creative.
missing.
Creative is the new word right now in real estate. And this is so creative. And I need to get your message out and spread it because people don't know about this. They're too busy trying to do the Airbnbs, like you said, in their backyards with the pools, which has
Right.
so much more liability
Oh
than
my
your
gosh. I'm not knocking Airbnb. I used to stay in them all the time, but I'm just
right.
saying compared to the difference of people like, oh, I don't want that in my neighborhood. I would take a transitional or sober living house in my
More.
neighborhood over that when I've witnessed it, where I'm like, I don't even know who to call at this point, but we heard the screaming and look out our window, and there are teenagers on the roof, just leaping off the roof
Oh my
into
gosh.
a pool.
That
And I'm
just
just like,
that's like
I,
liability is right there. I'm breaking out of hives. And then, but like,
yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know. I guess you call the police. I don't
I'm like,
really
I
even
know, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be that neighbor that calls the police, but I'm like, I think
no
I
one
need
wants to
to.
be the Karen, but we
Yeah,
gotta protect the people. But yeah, I think everybody deserves a second chance, even if they have to have a third or fourth chance, like you said. Recovery
absolutely.
is like a whole long process. Like we're allowed to make mistakes. Like we're humans, and
Oh, we're
so
gonna make mistakes, exactly, and that's the point. I
part
mean,
of it.
our
Mhm.
mistakes, thank God, not my mistakes, aren't all made public record, on a
It's a
rap
rap
sheet for
sheet,
people.
right?
People, I don't have to background check me and see everything I've done wrong. But we've all done things that we do not want to be put out there or judged upon. And then thankfully, with a lot of it, it's not known. But this group of people, it's public record and it has to be brought up every single time they go to a job interview, every time they go try to find a place to live. And it's
Right.
so difficult for them because, I don't want my stuff out there on blast from something that I've done, you know,
Right.
and then they have to have that done every single time. To even just get a job at IHOP, they have to go through
They
it and
have to
like and
like
have to
renew
say,
it. And then, they probably leave feeling down about themselves. Well, I should just go back and do what I've always done because
it's
that's what
easier.
worked for me. It's
Mhm.
what worked for me. And I think that's the sad part of our society. They don't give enough people enough credit for that. And, they compare it differently. Like, I always feel like you can buy alcohol in the store, right? As long as you're 21. You can buy cigarettes as long as you're 18. I still think it's 18. But, drugs, if you have a prescription and then you start abusing it, it's not looked at in the same that all of those you could abuse cigarettes, you could abuse, alcohol, you can
You can
abuse
abuse sugar. I mean, you can
yeah,
abuse
I was gonna say you
anything.
can abuse food,
Anything is addiction.
everything, caffeine, everything becomes an addiction. And I have to drink coffee every day. So I feel like if I don't, I'm probably gonna have a headache or something. Then
Mhm.
that means I'm addicted to it. So I feel like addiction is something that people, it's so misunderstood. And
Oh,
I'm
you're like,
glad,
oh, that's not me. That would never happen to me.
and it could.
And like, how grouchy are you if you don't have coffee in the morning?
You're an addict. You're a coffee addict. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, my husband, he had to go cold turkey off of caffeine and quit coffee. And I'm like, we need to go to marriage counseling. That first 2 weeks of that, I'm like, we might have to go to marriage counseling because you were so grouchy. And
It's
like,
true.
that's just a mild caffeine. Now, these are people that have like, go through withdrawal symptoms too.
Oh,
And like,
yeah.
the fact they've gotten strong enough to go through that and come out the other side, they don't get the credit they deserve for that,
No, it
of
was
how
so,
strong they are.
that's so hard for them. So I'm so glad I got to talk to you today because we're about running out of time, but we're going to do this again. We're going to go do a meeting with the homes that you talked about. In addition to, I'm going to share all of the sites that you talked about, and your link and your information because I really want to get this out to the general public, in the community. So
Yes,
again,
thank you. And yes, and you guys have any nonprofits out there that are struggling, wanting to create something for the next steps for housing for the residents, get them out. That's what we do. We come up with a strategy for you and help them because somebody needs to.
somebody needs to, and it's you. And I'm so grateful for your time today. And I will see you soon.
Yes, and thank you so much for keeping them all safe and with insurance and keeping us legal and safe.
That's my job. Thank you. And thanks for helping the community that's underserved.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening and joining us. If you haven't already, please share, subscribe, and like our episodes and our podcast. Also, leave a review. It will be so helpful to us, and we would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us at any time, we're open to any guests joining us in person and on Zoom. We post and record episodes bi-weekly, so that's twice a month. Also, they're posted on our socials, which is Facebook, Secured Insurance Group, Instagram, Colleen Insurance Lady. This podcast was hosted by myself, Miss Colleen Pacheco, and recorded and produced and edited by Sean Spazzato. Our podcast cover art was designed and created by Norma Pacheco, and our intro and outro music is created by Lounge Bar by Geronik. Goodbye.